guess we'll start recording week 23. So this week, I'm not going to be writing so much code as I am going to be showing you code that I've written. Only because last week's stream, the video recording was lost. It got corrupted. So to fix that, I'm just going to go over what I did last week and sort of show you how a crafting system is made, like Terraria. There's no crafting grid, so again, it's not like Minecraft. It's more like Terraria, where it's just a list of things you can craft depending on the items you have in your inventory slots. In my version, you only have 10 slots, and I'll show you that now. So you're this little green guy. You can pick up stuff. These are all items, and you can use these items to craft things. So I used crafting recipes for Minecraft, and I used items for Minecraft. So please don't sue me. Basically, I'll show you what you can do. So picking up wood, picking up sticks. And if you've ever played Minecraft, you know that in the crafting grid, you can make like shovels and swords, and the crafting recipes for that. Well, there's no grid here. It's just a list. And just clicking on that will make that item. And remove the items that you use to craft it from your inventory. So if I was going to make an iron shovel, it would be 2 sticks and an iron bar. And that takes it all away and just makes it right there. Now, a lot of people think crafting is an easy thing to do, but it involves a ton of arrays and lists and loops and whatnot, so it's not as simple as it seems. I don't think I can make bread. No. Can't actually make anything right now. I have to drop something and pick up a stick. Like that. So you can make like another iron shovel and use those items, and there you go. You could drop your items with E, whatever's in that slot, and you can also explode your items with Q and get rid of everything. Alright, so this is the fun part, the code. Almost everything will be the same as my old inventory engine tutorial. It's, I don't remember which week it is, but it's almost the same code base as that. I just made a few changes because it's just so old. I'll pull that up now. Yeah, it was week 10. Week 10 is the Minecraft inventory system. And this week I turned it into a crafting system. So all I did was change a few things in the item, the player's code, and I changed a few things in the scripts, but the biggest change is in the sprites to add more items, and here with the crafting control object. This is completely new. This did not exist. I made it its own separate object because it's a little bit more modular that way, so it's separate and it's less confusing, I guess. So I guess we should start with picking up items. So in the player's step event, all you do is see if you're touching an item, and then if you are touching an item, you get the ID of the item. And obviously you want to make sure that there is actually an item there with the is not equal to no one. So if there is no item there, it will return no one using this function. So that's a good check. So there's no errors. Then we just check if we can pick it up. There's a little timer on the items that I added in this version, so that you can't pick it up right away, because when you craft things you throw them and you could pick it up instantly, which didn't really appear. It made it look as if you didn't craft some things sometimes. It wasn't obvious enough. So you pick all these up and you add it to this array, this 2D array slot. Those are the slots of your inventory. With the first index being the slot index, and this being like the amount or the type of item that's in that slot. And of course, if the type is equal to -1, then there's nothing there. So this just selects which item is in your inventory. So you use the mouse wheel to scroll through your inventory and select which item you're holding currently. This just loops back around the inventory, so if you go past 0, it comes back around this side. E drops whatever's in the currently selected inventory slot. Q drops everything in your inventory. And then I added this. This is important. When you pick up an item or you drop an item, or anytime your inventory changes, anytime the player's inventory slots get changed, you should always update your crafting system. And that's what you do here. I just made a variable called update. It's always set to false in the beginning of the game. So when you pick up an item or you drop an item, it sets update to true, and then we come back here and we update whatever our inventory is currently. And then we set update to false, so that it doesn't trigger every frame. And of course, you got your good old movement. We've already gone over that. This didn't change much. All I did was separate the shadows and the sprites so they don't draw on top of each other. And this didn't change at all. So all relatively similar. Let me just make sure this is all correct. Yeah. Alright, and here's the can pick up thing. That's all that is. It's just an alarm that sets can pick up to true after, like, what, a second? Yeah. It's simple stuff. Script init craft. This is what initializes the crafting system. I'll get to that in just a second. I just want to show you the draw code. When you press I in-game, it switches from the instructions and the information display up here to the actual crafting system. Right now there's nothing because you can't craft anything. You don't have enough items. So every time you pick up an item, remember we update the inventory. So when you update the inventory, you're actually updating the crafting system objects arrays. So just a heads up, this is all done in object crafting control, and it's all in the draw GUI event pretty much. So between the script init craft, script update craft, and this draw GUI event, that's pretty much everything that's the crafting system. It's contained in those code bases, I guess. So in here we just loop through all the crafting recipes and we draw them all, make sure if we're left clicking or right clicking, and we draw the text and sprite of the crafting item. So let's start getting into the meat of it all. So obviously we need to know how many items we're going to craft, so this is just our main variable crafts. This is what tells you how many crafting recipes there are. So this is just the amount of recipes that are in this initialization script. So you have all these items like wheat, bread, you have sticks, and you have swords. But just having those sprites doesn't mean you can craft anything. Um, Even having the items on the ground doesn't mean you can craft anything. It's There's no association between just a stick and some iron ingots that the game automatically knows to craft things with. So what we do is we do that here. So you tell it the title of the thing you want to craft. So you could change this to whatever you want. It could be like a shirt. It could be pants. It doesn't have to be bread. This is where you make it up. So to make bread, you use the sprite index from this, and it says the image index is 1. So this is the image index of sprite items, of the item being crafted. So obviously it's 1 and it's bread, so that makes sense. And then this part, the second indexing crafts. This is the amount of separate crafts needed to craft. So that's wrong. The amount of separate items needed to craft. So the bread, it only needs 1 unique item to craft bread, which is wheat. If you've ever played Minecraft, you'll know you just have to put 3 wheat horizontally in the crafting grid and you get bread. So you only need 1 unique item. You only need wheat. If you needed flour and wheat, which doesn't make sense. If you need flour and a bucket of water in there to craft it, then this would be 2, because you would need two unique items. You need the wheat and the water. But since it's just wheat, you're just using 1 unique item. This is set to 1. This sets up how many items we're going to loop through to see if we have all those items later. So since we're only using 1 unique item, we only have to initialize one of those things here. So unique item 1's image index, which is 0, because we're making bread. Remember, its image index is 1 in here. The only thing you need to make it, the 1 unique item, is wheat, and its image index is here. And then you need 3 of them. The amount of unique item 1 needed to craft. You just need 3 wheat. So this should all start to, you should see a pattern here of how it's all coming together. So you have the item being crafted, you have its image index in sprite items, you have the amount of items needed to craft it, you need the image index of the first item being crafted, the item needed to craft it, and then you have the amount of that item that's needed to craft it. Now here we go into more complicated stuff. So every time you initialize a crafting recipe, you just do crafts equals false and crafts plus plus. What this does is later on in the draw GUI event, which I kind of skimmed over, you'll see that if can craft I is equal to true. So if this is true. So we're looping through all the crafting recipes, seeing if we can craft it here. Literally what this is if we can craft this craft right here. So if it starts off false because we start off with an empty inventory. And we're just initializing things. So we literally cannot craft this item because we don't have the available items in our inventory slots. So if we do have it, we would set this to true, or if we end up picking up something, which is the script update craft, we could set it to true for this item. Now crafts, it starts off at 0. So this would be 0 here. This would be the first CanCraft index. So CanCraft 0, if you can imagine that. So it starts off this way, and then we come down here. It's still crafts, and crafts is now equal to 1. So now it's CanCraft 1 equals blah blah. So all we're doing is just counting the amount of crafts we have and using that counter variable as our index here. So this is just if you set up the craft and then you tell it that you can't craft it yet. You're just making that variable there in the array. And then we start off with a completely new item. Iron hoe. I didn't go in order of like, I guess in Minecraft how strong the items are. I just kind of did it however I did it. So these are not in any particular order. I just kind of put them in there. I did group the iron items together just for consistency, but other than that, there's no pattern. So, yeah. So again, the current crafting item, iron hoe, you have its title. Then you have the image index, which is 5. So if we go in here and we go to the 5th image index, it should be an iron hoe, which it is. The amount of separate crafts needed to craft. You need 2 items to craft an iron hoe. And just by looking at it, you can kind of tell that you need a stick and maybe the iron thing to craft it. So you're going to need blah, 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 blah to craft it. Oh, God. So you need 2 separate items to craft it. And you have the first image index of the first item as 2. So 2, which is a stick, and you need 2 of those. You need 2 sticks to craft the iron hoe. Now, we're not finished. That's not the end of the recipe. You have 2 items. So unique item 2's image index is 4. So we go to 4, and you can see that it's an iron bar. Now, you're setting this up in your game. This is completely up to you. I'm not doing this in any sort of way. I just used Minecraft's crafting recipes to base this off of, just for simplicity's sake. And most people know what Minecraft is and how to play it. So you have your first item's image index 2, which is the stick. You realize you need 2 of them, and you have unique item 2, which is the iron bar, and you need 2 of those to craft it. So you need 2 items, and you need 2 of each to craft it: a stick and an iron ingot. And then you continue through the thing, tell them that you just initialize a new craft, and that you can't craft that one yet, and you continue down the line in that pattern of what you need, how many of them, and what's the sprite for each one, blah blah blah. I just did that for all the items, and that's how you set up a crafting system. Or one way to do it. There's no right way to do it. I think this is the simplest way. So then that's just the initialization. That's just initializing all the crafts. You can't craft anything yet. If you're not drawing anything yet, this has done absolutely nothing except for initialize what you can and can't craft. The script update craft is this updates the can craft variable, as you can see here, depending on the player's inventory. So to sum this up really fast, the player has slots right here, slot 0, slot 1, for each slot. Like I think there's 10 slots, and for each one you have the item type and the item amount. So if you have wheat in there, it'll tell you this is the wheat, and this is going to tell you how many you have in that slot. So the player goes through all of its slots. It builds an item list, listing all the items, all the unique items, and how many of those items total in its slots. So it goes through all of them and basically tallies up what do I have in this item list slot. The array index in item list is the image index here. Alright, so it builds the list. It tells you for each item, this is how many I have. And then in the crafting control, we loop through all of the items that we can craft. And now, again, we set all of these crafts up in script initcraft. Since we incremented it each time we created a crafting recipe, that's how many crafting recipes we have. So we loop through all the crafting recipes that we do have, and we check if we can make them. So we loop through all the items needed to craft. Remember, we have the amount of unique items needed to craft that recipe. So the bread only has one unique item. It just has wheat that you need to make it. This loop would only go through once. If you had 2 items, it would loop through twice. It just checks that you have the right amount. And if it's greater than or equal to the check amount, you can make it. And if you can make it, it just sets that can craft array to true for that index. And that's pretty simple, except for all the loops. I mean, if you've dealt with loops before, it's not going to be too hard. This is very simple stuff. It's just arrays and loops. It's like, how more simplistic can I get? Then we go into our draw GUI event, where everything comes together, and it's a big mess of code. So what we'll do is we'll go through it piece by piece. No more water. Hold on 1 second. Alright. I'm good now. Alright. So, we were just getting into the draw GUI event of the object crafting control. So, all we do is the create event, we set crafting to false. That's if we're in the crafting menu. And then here, we just check if we're in the crafting menu. We have a index. This is the index of the current craftable item. Since we loop through all of the items, whether they're craftable or not, we want to use an index for only the craftable items. So you want to skip over the ones that can't be crafted, basically. You don't want to draw those. We have a drawing position, and then we go into this giant block of code. It's really meaty. You can break it down, though. It's very verbose once you start breaking it down. So we loop through every crafting recipe, every frame to draw every item that can be crafted. So the big cutter right here, if we can craft it, we continue the loop. Otherwise, we just stop. That if you can't craft it, sorry, you're done. There's nothing else to do with that. So we just check if the mouse is in the rectangle of the crafting item. So you had that list, and you had like sort of the button rectangle you could like mouse over and select. You just check which one your mouse is in, and if it's in, you draw a little highlight over it, a highlighted rectangle. And if you left click, you do something. If you right click, you do something else. And then you draw the text, which is the title of the item that you're crafting, and you draw the sprite and the sprite index. That's probably the more important part. So this is really simple because I put all of the items in the same sprite and just use the image index. So I recommend you do that. It's going to make your life easier. So into the mouse button lefts. This is probably the most complicated part, just because we have so many nested loops. We're using I here, and then we're using J, and then we're using K. So it gets a little deep into it, but bear with me, you'll get through it. So when you left click, we're only going to make one item. If you right click, you're going to use up as many materials as you can to make all the items you can. So you're not just making one, you're making literally as many as you have the materials for. So we have to loop through all of the unique materials needed to craft. So remember, script init craft, we have the amount of unique items needed to craft. This is the craft blah 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 here. So we loop through all the items that are needed to craft it. We get the type, and we get the amount that we need to remove. So if we're making bread, this is the loop only goes through once. There's only one index. We have to remove wheat, so this is the type, and then the amount would be 3. So for example, for the bread, it's not too hard. This stuff looks complicated. It's really not. The J times 2 part, because we have the unique craft thing all in the same array. If we want to skip over this one, if we only want to get like the item image index for each one, for each unique item, you would just do this one plus 1 plus 2. So it's because you're in a loop, you're going to loop through all of these. You're just going to use the original position, which is 3, and then do every other one. So to do 3 to 5, you add 2. And then to do 5 to 7, you add 2. So it's just the constant there to skip over every other one. That's what this part means. It depends on the way you set the code up, honestly. That's what I did. It's simple. Just to make it more visible, that the index starts at 3, the first item type and the first item amount, and then once you go through the loop again, you're using the J thing, the J iterator, and you're just doing that. This is the amount of unique materials needed to craft. So, alright. You go into another loop. We're now 3 loops deep, not including the game loop itself, and immediately you go into another loop. So you're in this for loop, you're in this for loop, you're in this do loop, and you're in this for loop. So we loop through all the unique materials needed to craft. Then, after we get the type and amount that we need to remove, we go through the player slots. Here, you can see that we're doing this by the player slots. That's the for loop max. We check if in that slot, in the player slot, that the thing we're trying to remove is actually there. So if we're making bread, we're going to go through the player slot, every slot that the player has for the inventory and look for wheat. So this all this is if the player's slot type is equal to the remove type. So here we got it that if we're making, for example, we were making bread, the type to remove would be wheat. Um, so we're just checking if the player's slot is wheat. If it is, we remove basically whatever's in the slot or however much it takes to make wheat. So let's say you have 64 wheat, just throwing it out there. You have 64 wheat in your first slot. It's only going to remove 3 wheat because you only need to make 3. So the minimum is the lesser of two things. It returns the lesser of two values. So if you have 64 in here, which is the amount in the slot, or you have how much you need to remove, it's going to remove 3 if there's more in the slot than what you're trying to remove. Now, if there's only 1 in the player slot, let's say you only have 1 wheat, and you need to remove 3, it's only going to remove 1. But that leaves the question: if you only removed 1 wheat, can't you still make the bread? No, because we're doing this until the amount removed is 0. So here we total up the amount we need to remove, and then we subtract from it every time we remove stuff. So you basically have to remove it before you can create it. So and if there's no items in that slot, you used up all the material to make what you're crafting. If you used up all of it, it just resets the slot to nothing in there, so that the player inventory knows that there's absolutely nothing in that slot again. So we got this far. It's pretty deep, but that's pretty much it. So again, go through all the crafts, go through the unique items needed to craft, then go through the player inventory, checking against the things needed to craft the recipe. So, and then remove them until the player inventory is satisfactory. So if you're making bread, you have to remove 3 wheat. And then we update the crafting system so that the crafting system knows that if you don't have enough in your inventory, that you can't make it. So if you can't make it, you can't make it. So if you have like 2 wheat, it's going to update this and say, oh wow, you don't have enough. You can't craft that. And it'll move it from the can craft array. And then there you go, you can't craft it. You won't draw it, and you won't even know that you can craft it. It'll just be out of the way. So we clicked, we found out we can make it, we updated it. Now we create the item, which is just the object item with the speed and direction randomly selected so that it goes in a random direction, and then you give it the image index of the crafting type that you made, and that's about it. You made the item. That's the crafting system pretty much. You check if you have the item, you remove the item from your inventory, and then you create the crafting item. So those big 3 steps, that's what's in here. And you do the same thing for the right, except you do it as many times as you can. So this one, you do it until CanCraft is equal to false. Here you only do it until you've removed what you need in that recipe. This one removes it and keeps removing it and creating items until you literally have no more items left to craft that one recipe. So it's a lot to take in. It's a lot of code. It's a lot of loops, but it makes sense and it works. There's probably not a simpler way to do this unless maybe use lists or DS grids. Other than that, good luck getting it to be shorter or simpler or easier to read code. This is about as simplified yet readable as it gets. Um, you don't repeat much code in here except for the mouse button left and mouse button right, the same thing. And then you just draw the sprite and the text for the item. And that makes sense. The update craft, I think I went over this. Yeah. So you end up with this system where you're able to pick up items. It updates the crafting system to tell you if you can make it or not. All the crafting things. It tells you if you can make whatever's in that crafting list. Every time you pick up or drop an item, it updates that. Then you have the crafting menu telling you what you can and can't craft based on the array that depends on your inventory. You click it and it removes the items from your inventory after checking that it has enough, or it creates as many items as you can depending on your inventory. And then you just draw it. You draw what you have left, what you can craft. So I think I can only make one sword. Yeah. If there were 2 more iron bars, I'd be able to do it. Actually, I can make 2 swords, I think. So I'm going to hit wooden sword. I'm going to right click it. It should make 2 wooden swords. Yeah. Alright, looks good to me. And again, you can change how many you can hold. So this second part of the item initialization is how many per stack. So you can hold 64 sticks in one slot. You could change that to like 8, and that's just, you can't hold more than 8 sticks in one slot. And the whole inventory system works smoothly after that. You don't have to change anything else. That's just how it is. It's just as easy to change the crafting system. So initcraft, let's say to make bread, you want to change how many wheat it makes. You would just, or how many wheat it is required to make it. You could just change this to 1 and everything works. That's all you had to change. Now you only need 1 wheat to make 1 bread. It's a really flexible system. That's the big advantage to using the loops with the discrete arrays instead of like variables. It allows for to easily expand it. You can add items and crafting recipes like that. You can change them pretty much on the fly too. So now I should be able to make 2 bread. Oh, I'm not in the crafting menu. Yeah. It's just as simple as that. There's not much you have to do. That's pretty much it for this week. I'm gonna start doing shorter videos. I'll start like coding a lot of it behind the scenes and I'll explain it later because the longest part of it is debugging and making sure everything's set up right. So if I get the setup right in the beginning and it's all bug free before the stream really starts and then I finish up the code on stream, I think that's a good way to do it. While still keeping you guys involved. I don't want to like do it all beforehand. This is like a one-time thing mostly because I don't know what happened to OBS, but basically it corrupted the video file, so I couldn't upload it. So shorter streams, probably around 45 minutes to an hour. I don't want to go over an hour really. Shorter streams, and I'll try and do the big parts that are boring and unnecessary for the stream beforehand, so you guys don't have to skim through that and watch that. Send in those requests, man. I get to them every week, even though this was a request and it got corrupted last week. I'm doing it again. I feel like I should. And if you guys request it, I'll do it. It's just a matter of me getting to it. I have a decent list right now. The shader tutorial, Liam's still working on that. We actually did get some progress on shaders. He made some pretty cool stuff with shaders. I don't understand it, like, to be able to teach it yet. I get it, but not like deep understanding. So I feel like if I teach things, it won't be right. So I'll get to the shaders later. Pathfinding, that is a big, deep one. That is just, it's a long stream because it involves traversing a grid and then stepping back through that grid and using like it's just, you're storing a lot of data. It's a lot of grids, and you have to initialize the grid to pathfind on in the first place. It's just, it's a lot to it. So I might split that one up. MP pathfinding, I never use that. I don't like that. That's GameMaker's built-in pathfinding. I don't think I like that one. But I do have experience in making my own A-star pathfinding. If I have it somewhere around here, I will show you. Oh, before that happens, I think I'm just gonna end this stream so that there's not a huge file size. If you guys have any questions, on my site I have a comment section. You can find me on Reddit. You can find me on Twitch. And on Twitch, you'll be able to find my site. So you can get to me from pretty much anywhere. I have a Twitter. You can tweet me on there. And of course, I stream every Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Put in those requests, and I'll see you guys next week. Hope you like the new layout and stuff. If there's anything that needs to be changed, I'll change it. So I'll catch you later, guys. I'll see you next week, and I hope you like it. See you later.